Welcome, everybody, to the Lightning Round podcast. I am at Garrett Sisti, Jamie at Lightning_round. And yesterday, Jamie and I were able to join the Intrasquad scrimmage for the Chargers. We got to meet a lot of you, which was a lot of fun. Got to get pizza with you afterwards. So thank you, everybody. And we're here to just break down all the action from yesterday. So we'll just go from offense and defense and break down these position groups and what kind of we saw yesterday. Jamie, let's go ahead and start with offense. I guess we can start with the quarterbacks because Brandon Staley had something pretty interesting to say about one of the quarterbacks today.
Yeah, so Brandon Staley was quoted talking about Easton Stick, basically saying that he felt Easton Stick has shown a lot of improvement, particularly as a passer. He said something to the effect of, we know Easton Stick has a lot of, good quarterbacking stuff, whatever that meant. And Easton has improved a lot as a passer. He's really worked on his accuracy and his arm strength, and he's improving there. And the quote that he used was, Chase Daniel and Easton Stick both have big roles on this team. So I don't think you have to read between the lines too much. It sounds like Easton Stick's going to make this roster unless he just completely tanks in the preseason. But he was, to me, and I think you agree, based on what we saw from Herbert and Daniel and Stick, I thought Stick was by far the least impressive quarterback on the team yesterday. He was inaccurate. I thought he was having a hard time feeling pressure. Ball was coming out late. Seemed like he was having a hard time seeing and reading the field. There were several throws, at least 3 or 4, where we both said, no, don't throw that, as he was getting ready to throw it. Couple of them were high and late to the sideline, a couple high and late over the middle of the field. And he wasn't, even when he was getting the ball out on time, he wasn't particularly on target. So I didn't think Stick looked that good. The third team offense in particular struggled to move the ball all day long with Stick back there. So it's interesting that they seem so devoted, so committed to keeping him as a third quarterback when they don't really need 3 quarterbacks, and he really hasn't done much to earn it, at least from what I've seen.
Yeah, we know he'll be inactive on game day, whether he makes the roster or not, but keeping 3 quarterbacks is suspect with all the depth they're going to need, with guys stepping up on the interior of the defensive line, some of these rookie DBs, some of these edge guys that are stepping up. I mean, we'll get to a lot of what happened yesterday, but it is a strange comment about Stick, who really stunk yesterday. I mean, it was Justin Herbert, who by far is QB1, and it's so stupid good. You just get reminded how good he is every time he touches the football. But then it's Chase Daniel. There is a cliff, and then there is the ocean. Then there's the center of the earth, and then there's Easton Stick somewhere on the other side of it. And I mean, there you could see, just watching it, that in the middle of a throw, there is an audible no from Jamie or I on these throws that he just should not be making. And he held on the ball way too long, which Jamie mentioned. And whenever he made a throw, the wide receiver or tight end or the running back had to absolutely be wide open in order for him to make a throw. He made kind of a really good kind of touch pass to Isaiah Spiller, but Spiller kind of had a couple steps on the linebacker and he was able to drop it over the top. But other than that throw, everything had to be absolutely wide open for him to kind of make a throw. And it seemed like in his mind that his clock was being hurried and he was ready to just take off and run a lot of the time in this scrimmage. So I don't see where Stick fits on this roster. And I don't quite see what Easton Stick has done throughout camp. He hasn't been good in any of the days I've been there. Obviously, Staley has been there a lot more than I have. But even from yesterday, to say something like Stick, which maybe he's a great guy and he's just trying to build his quarterback up, which is fine. And he's trying to be supportive, which is also good in a coach. But really, you kind of made it sound like they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, all but saying they're going to keep 3 quarterbacks in that comment. And really, he hasn't done anything to deserve it. And that's really the kind of sticking point with me. Is I get being confident and all that, but what has he done to earn your confidence in that he's going to have a quote unquote big role with this team? What could Easton Stick possibly give you on game days that Herbert is not? And Chase Daniel's not giving you at QB2. So kind of a very weird and offhand comment about Easton Stick, because there's a lot of guys who stood out yesterday, and we'll talk about them. But Easton Stick, that seemed very strange.
Yeah, Stick to me seems uncomfortable in the pocket.
Mhm.
Seems like you mentioned that clock is speeding up and he's kind of panicking. The only time he really looks comfortable is when he's using his legs. And you mentioned that one throw to Spiller. That was an off script play.
Mhm.
Spiller was in the flat. As soon as Stick rolled out to his left, Spiller turned up field and got on top of the linebacker and still had to make a really nice, toe drag catch on the sideline
Mhm.
just to bring it in. So even that one throw, it wasn't like he made it within the confines of the offense. It was just an ad lib, backyard football kind of play. And it was a nice play. He got the ball to Spiller. Spiller made a
Mhm.
nice catch.
Yeah.
It was a big chunk. It was one of the standout plays of the day in terms of making a nice catch on the sideline. But, the only thing I can think of with Stick is they really seem to want to develop him into, QB2 for this team long term, which, I mean, if you want to spend time developing a QB2, I mean, more power to you. It seems like there's plenty of guys out there on the street who can give you what Stick gives you. We're in year 4 with Easton Stick now, or entering year 4 with Easton Stick. If he's not ready to be QB2 by now, if he can't beat out Chase Daniel by now, is he ever going to? Is he ever going to be ready for that? So it seems like they want him to be that guy. And this seems like that one position, kind of like KJ Hill at the returner position last year. And there were a couple other guys who really didn't fit the roles they were trying to put him in, but they were just bound and determined to fit them in there.
Mhm.
And it seems like that's what they're doing with Stick. And maybe it's a relationship thing. Maybe they just feel like Stick and Daniel make Herbert comfortable in the quarterback room. I mean, Stick has just as much time in terms of, years in the system as Herbert does. So it's not like he's more familiar with the system. He isn't more experienced. There's nothing he does on the field that Herbert doesn't do many, many times over better. So it's a weird fascination. And to me, it just seems logical that if Stick is not ready to beat out Chase Daniel this year, which based on what we saw yesterday, I don't think he is,
Mm-mm.
then why bother keeping him? What are you really developing at that point? But it seems like that's where we're headed. They're going to keep 3 quarterbacks, and I suppose we have to accept it. Doesn't mean we have to like it, but we have to accept it.
We don't have to like it. And I didn't even plan on talking about quarterbacks today, really. But then that comment came out, and and here we are spending time on Easton Stick. But let's get into the exciting stuff, and let's talk about wide receivers. There was a couple of them who were stars yesterday. Joshua Palmer was Justin Herbert's favorite target during the scrimmage. He looked sharp, caught almost everything thrown his way. Deandre Carter was the other one, who was definitely one of Herbert's other favorite targets, was definitely the best wide receiver of the twos when they were playing, made 2 acrobatic catches. One he had to go down for, one he had to make in traffic with 2 other defenders around him. Mike Williams, Keenan Allen did pretty good yesterday, but they were fine. But Palmer and Carter got the most action of the wide receivers.
Yeah, it seemed like Palmer was open throughout the competition. He was the 3rd wide receiver on the field with the ones. We did not see any Jalen Guyton with the ones.
Mm-mm.
And even when Guyton was on the field with the twos, he was pretty much invisible until the very last, I think it was the red zone portion or the 2-minute portion at the very end of
Mm-hmm.
practice. But Palmer, I mean, even in drills, you can see how crisp his footwork is. And, spending a year in the system, playing alongside Keenan Allen, you can tell he was already a good route runner, and he's
Mm-hmm.
even better than he was when he came out. And that's a lot of fun to see that kind of development from year 1 to year 2. You can just tell he's been putting the work in on his own in the offseason, him being Palmer, and he catches everything they throw his way. He was catching short passes, intermediate passes. They took a couple deep shots to him. Didn't connect on the deep shots, but if he could get his hands on the football, he was going to catch it.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw him catching over routes, slants, posts, you name it, he caught it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was beating, I think he had a couple catches on J.C. Jackson, a couple on Asante Samuel. Palmer was really, really, really good. And it was very clear that Justin Herbert trusts him. And I would say the story of camp right now is there is no doubt. I think you can write, whether it's pen, Sharpie, whatever, you can write Joshua Palmer's name in pen as a wide receiver 3. I think that's a lock. He is so much better than everybody else behind him. It's just not even a question at this point.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned Deandre Carter. I've heard people raving about him. I know, in our Discord, people have been saying they think he's wide receiver 4, that he'll beat out Guyton. I wasn't buying it until I saw him play.
I was one of those, by the way, in Discord.
Were you?
As Carter as wide receiver 4. Yeah.
Prior to camp though?
Yesterday, yeah. No, not prior to camp. No.
Yeah, there were some people who were saying that when they signed him, that they thought he would
Right.
overtake Guyton as wide receiver 4, and I wasn't buying that quite yet. But seeing him play yesterday, I was super impressed. It just seems like, sometimes coaches get stuck in their own way of thinking, and maybe these coaches that have had him in years past just didn't know how to use him properly. But Carter was just like Palmer. He was open all over the field, primarily played from the slot, played a little bit outside, caught slants, caught short passes, caught 2 beautiful deep balls, one from Chase Daniel, one that was just a dime about 40 yards downfield from Justin Herbert that probably should have been a touchdown, but was ruled down on the 1 yard line. The throw from Daniel was a seam route where he was lined up on the linebacker, got over the top of the linebacker. I think it was Agba Mamiga, got over the top of him, split the safeties, and just kept running and caught a beautiful pass. He looks really good. He looks twitchy. He looks explosive. He's catching everything. He made one you mentioned the over route where he had to go down and dig a ball out of the ground with the safety bearing down on him from Daniel. I think that was in the first possession from the second team offense. He just looks so good, so crisp. And you said it when you went out and saw him in camp, and I had to see it to believe it, but he's definitely he's the most explosive receiver on this team. He may not run as fast a 40 time as Jalen Guyton does, but he's twitchier. He's more explosive. There is an extra gear there and a level of shiftiness there that the other wide receivers on this team just don't have. And it'll be fun to see. They use him for jet sweeps. They use him for reverses. So he's involved in the gadget game. He's involved in the return game. Now he's making plays down the field. I think yesterday he recorded the 2 longest catches of camp through the first 2 weeks. So very impressive for those 2, and doesn't leave much hope for Jalen Guyton in terms of his spot on the depth chart right now. You can just see him sliding down the depth chart based on the way those guys are playing.
Yeah, because Carter got run with the ones. That's where he got the almost touchdown pass from Herbert, and Jalen Guyton. And we saw Michael Bandy, Joe Reed, Maurice French catch passes before Jalen Guyton got his hands on a ball. I mean, he was the last receiver to catch a pass in scrimmage yesterday, and it was, I think it was the 2-minute or maybe the red zone. I don't remember which one, but it was at the very, very end where it was a very quick offense, and it was just a quick little, I think 6 or 7 yard gain, nothing too impressive even at that. So yeah, it seems like he's fallen down the depth chart a little bit. And I think the conversation is starting to really heat up on, is Jalen Guyton wide receiver 4, or has he really fallen off and become wide receiver 5? Because Carter does everything that Jalen Guyton does, and it seems like he's doing everything he does and better in camp so far from what I've seen and what he did yesterday. I mean, he was the safety net for, I almost said Kellen Clemens again. I made that mistake yesterday with Jamie, with Chase Daniel. That's how long we've been doing this podcast. With Chase Daniel, he was the safety blanket. They were automatic. They were clicking. And then when he went in with the ones, Justin Herbert hit him a couple times too. So he's become a dependable target. And you can see that he's got some twitch and some speed to his game. And Jalen Guyton didn't show that yesterday. So it's going to be interesting with this wide receiver depth chart and how it's going to shake out, because Carter might be that speed guy that the Chargers really do need.
And now all the conversation about Jalen Guyton being forced to play gunner starting to crystallize and make a lot more sense. When you were looking at him as wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, it seemed like maybe they were just trying to help him work on his press release, but it's pretty clear that they're trying to figure out a way to help him stay on the team. They're trying to help him find a way to add value on special teams, which he really hasn't done in the past. And he's probably not going to factor into the wide receiver discussion a whole lot unless they're just bringing him on the field for the occasional deep shot. But I think Carter, you mentioned it, Carter even does that better than he does. So it seems like an uphill battle right now. It seems like Guyton is fighting for that wide receiver 5 spot. Bandy looked good yesterday, playing mostly out of the slot, caught a bunch of short passes from Daniel and Stick. We even saw Joe Reed make some plays, made a nice catch on 4th down, nice physical catch with Brandon Sebastian bearing down on him.
Mhm.
Reed looked slow in the drills before practice, but I thought he looked better once the game started.
Mhm.
But Guyton, seemed like a lock a couple months ago to make this roster. Now he might be hanging on for dear life for that 5th wide receiver spot.
Yes, because we saw the UDFA Trevon
Bradford made another
Yes.
deep. That was another beautiful catch.
Yep.
Bradford beat Tavon Campbell deep, and Daniel made probably the best throw I've ever seen him make on a 40-yard touchdown pass in the corner. We didn't see it because our view was blocked, but reading the description of it, Bradford had to lay out and make a diving catch of that ball in the corner of the end zone.
Yeah.
So that was a huge catch. And again, if other guys are showing they can get deep, and that's all Guyton can do, then what value does he really add, even as a wide receiver 5? So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that last spot.
Yeah. And another battle going on right now was RB2. We saw Joshua Kelly and Isaiah Spiller kind of split snaps with the ones yesterday.
Yeah. It was Kelly mostly with the ones. Spiller got a few looks, but it was mostly Kelly early on in the scrimmage. And, for as much as we bash Kelly, for the most part, he looked pretty good. A lot of the reports out of camp have been that he's looked really explosive.
Yes.
In 11 on 11 and 7 on 7. And you could see that for sure in the scrimmage last night. He looks like he's lighter on his feet and more explosive. Didn't really get to see him run through many tackles, which is something I think they want to see from him on a more consistent basis, but looked really explosive through the hole, made a couple nice catches,
Dropped a couple too.
Dropped a couple too. Yeah. I think, if you're looking for, moments that stood out for him, he had 2 or 3 nice runs. And then he had 2 or 3 kind of bad plays. He had 2 drops. One was just a simple dump off pass. He was just a check down for Herbert underneath, and he tried to turn upfield too quickly and just clanked off his hands. The other one was not a great throw. He had to kind of turn and make an adjustment on a ball that was thrown behind him on a wheel route up the sideline, and kind of had an issue with that body control as he had to come back to the ball, and that clanked off his hands. And then there was a third play where we're not entirely sure what happened, but I think it was a 3rd or a 4th down play where the first team offense got stuffed. And as they were coming off the field, Herbert was lecturing Kelly about something. We could only assume it was about pass protection, but we didn't see it to be able to tell what exactly they were talking about. So 3 things there where Kelly has struggled with certain skill sets in his first couple of years on the team. It'll look for a few plays like he's getting over some of those struggles, and then they'll pop right back up again. So that's kind of the day that he had. I would say overall, it was probably more positive than negative.
Yeah.
Maybe a little even, but he looked pretty good for most of the time that he was on the field. And then we talked about Spiller. I don't remember him. Do you remember him carrying the ball a whole lot? I don't remember him carrying the ball a whole lot.
He did, but not a ton of gains. He got blown up in the hole by Lloyd, which we'll get to. But yeah, couple runs on the ground, but no real gains. It was Kelly that got a lot on the ground.
Yeah.
Of the 2.
But Spiller was making plays in the passing game. Yeah. He had a couple of really nice catches. Yeah. Spiller is almost like having a receiver coming out of the backfield. His hands are so natural and his body control is so good. And Staley had a really nice quote about him today saying that he's not intimidated by the NFL. Spiller. He said you can tell he feels like he belongs, and he's got that confidence level as a rookie that a lot of guys don't usually have. So they seem like they're really happy with him. And it seems like right now, Spiller and Kelly are kind of neck and neck for that RB2 role. And Roundtree is kind of the distant RB4 right now. Didn't look all that great yesterday. I don't remember him catching any passes. I don't think, maybe 1 or 2 short ones. I remember him trying to bounce a couple runs outside and getting run down by their linebackers or JT Woods. I think Agba Mamiga ran him down once. JT Woods ran him down once. I just didn't really have the balance or the quickness to get outside off tackle. But there was really nothing from Roundtree that stood out that was worth talking about, in my opinion.
Yeah, no. And then also, of course, Austin Eckler got the touchdown. Also reeled in a real impressive one-handed catch too. I think there's video of that too. But yeah, I mean, Joshua Kelly had a couple good runs on the ground, caught a few passes, dropped two. Spiller showed some really, really good hands again yesterday. Roundtree didn't flash much at all. And just a side note, I thought these UDFA running backs, Letty Brown and Kevin Marks,
Mhm.
had some good things on tape, and I thought it would be an interesting little battle for that RB4, maybe 3 spot, but neither of them really doing much at all, not even really getting a lot of opportunities in camp. I haven't seen them flash much at all. So a little disappointed in that. But yeah, it seems Joshua Kelly has had a little bit more bounce in his step in camp so far and kind of splitting carries with Spiller as that RB2.
Yep, for sure. And I thought we'd see more of Brown and Marks, at least in the scrimmage. Did they even on the field? I don't think they did.
I don't remember seeing them at all. I mean, I don't remember seeing them much at all during 11 on 11s or the other days I went. So, yeah, I don't know. They've been quiet and not much written up about them either.
Yeah,
So,
I'm not surprised. I mean, you've got three running backs ahead of them who were all drafted in the last 3 years. Those guys are UDFAs. Mark seemed like he kind of wore down in college and was beat up a lot towards the end of his career. Neither one of those guys really stood out a whole lot on tape when I watched them reviewing the UDFA. So I'm not terribly surprised. I didn't think either one of them would really make it anyway, but you'd think they'd at least get some run in the scrimmage.
Yeah, I thought Letty Brown had a pretty good shot at the practice squad, but who knows at this point. So moving on the offense, both tight ends were out yesterday, Donald Parham and Trey McKitty. Donald Parham's out with a hamstring injury, says it'll take about a week for him to heal up. So that's good news. We saw Gerald Everett, who caught a touchdown pass, one of the few touchdowns of yesterday from Herbert. Couldn't haul in a pass or two from Herbert. But that was kind of it from the tight ends. Camp Moyer had 2 receptions for little gains. Same with Sage Surratt. Pretty quiet from this kind of depleted tight end group yesterday.
Yeah, I thought Camp Moyer had a couple nice catches. Surratt had 1 first down catch, I think, and a couple other short ones. I have a feeling they're going to wind up carrying 4 tight ends just because they've had a hard time keeping Parham healthy. And now McKitty's banged up. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if they keep 4. And it seems like, just based on what I've been reading, it seems like Camp Moyer's probably got the inside track on being tight end 4 if they go that way, just because he's been playing a lot on all of the special teams units, first team special teams units. So it seems like he's kind of got that inside track, and he's got the advantage of having a close relationship with Herbert from college. So it seems like if they go that route, it's probably going to be Camp Moyer.
Yeah. So outside of that, it's just offensive line. Trey Pipkins, Storm Norton going at it for that starting right tackle spot yesterday.
Yeah, so they've been rotating Norton and Pipkins. Basically, one day Pipkins will get the bulk of the first team snaps, and then the next day he'll move to the second team, and Norton will get the bulk of the first team snaps. Yesterday was a Pipkins day with the first team. I think he got a little over half of the snaps with the first team. He had some moments, good and bad. There were a couple times, obviously, Khalil Mack is a superstar, and he was on Pipkins' side of the line, and he gave Pipkins some fits. There were a couple times where Mack almost all but picked him up and threw him into Herbert's lap. But there were also some nice run blocks. They had some really good runs to the right side of the line with the first team offense. And I thought overall Pipkins looked pretty solid. I think most of the struggles at right tackle came when Norton was out there yesterday. They had some of the edge rushers towards the back of the roster were having a lot of success coming off the right side against the twos, and that was mostly Norton. So I don't think anybody's really taken that step to take hold of the position. I don't think anybody's in a position to start getting the majority of the snaps right now. Both those guys are going to be fighting out probably all through camp, just based on what we've seen in the past and what's been happening in camp so far.
Right. Nobody running away with that right tackle spot. Both were fine, but yes, I think the Chris, which we'll talk about a little bit, those guys that were able to beat him off the edge was when Storm Norton was in. Trey Pipkins was fine. I thought they were both just okay. I thought Pipkins had the better day over Norton, which Jamie is kind of alluding to. And Khalil Mack is pretty decent. Joey Bosa was kind of sitting out most of the practice. I guess he had something going on with his foot yesterday, so we didn't see a lot of Joey Bosa. But when Khalil Mack was lined up on the right side, which they did a lot, Trey Pipkins won some and definitely lost some too. So, not you kind of expect that when you're going up against a talent like Mack, but I thought Trey Pipkins had the better day at right tackle, and neither one of these guys kind of running away with that right tackle job yet. It's just kind of, up in the air, and I think it's going to play out all through training camp and into the preseason. One other note on offensive line was Zion Johnson, who I thought was absolutely outstanding yesterday. Was just he just hunkered down, dropped that anchor, and just did not move. He had a beautiful blitz pickup. I think it was Lloyd blitzing 57.
It was in the red zone too. It's what
Yeah.
allowed their first or second touchdown with the ones.
Yeah, it was a great blitz pickup from the linebacker spot. Just able to drop anchor and hold his ground. You could tell in a lot of the videos that we were making that you could see a lot of the Chargers interior defenders are gaining ground, and Zion Johnson's still fighting basically at the line of scrimmage still with whoever it's Austin Johnson or Joseph Day, or whether it's Tillery or even Tito. He's not giving up a lot of ground, and I thought Zion Johnson was just absolutely electric yesterday, and I think Slater is just still Slater. I didn't see a lot of stuff going on that left side.
Yeah, I mean, Bosa was on and off the field, and even when he was on the field, it seemed like Slater had him pretty well handled. I don't remember Bosa getting anywhere near the quarterback.
No, he was very quiet yesterday.
And you mentioned Zion. I mean, there were several plays where he was just standing guys up, like you said, at the line of scrimmage, just standing them straight up and stonewalling them. He looked fantastic. Yeah. He is big and mean. And there was a quote from Bosa. He had a press conference, I think it was after today's practice, where they were asking him about some of the rookies, and he said, well, we went into the scrimmage saying kill the rookie, talking about Zion.
Yeah, that was yesterday. Yeah.
I told Sebastian Joseph Day, kill the rookie.
Yeah.
And Sebastian said, no, he's all right. And I said, no, kill him. And they couldn't kill him. Yeah. So he handled his own. They tried to bring it, and it sounds like he handled his business pretty well.
Yeah. Joey also said that he hasn't really talked to Zion, that Zion's a pretty quiet guy. He seems nice, but he's just kind of to himself and just takes care of business, which is kind of interesting.
Hadn't heard that.
Yeah, that was interesting. But yeah, man, Zion was awesome. So with that said, there were a lot of good things on offense, but in terms of a whole, Jamie, it was the defense kind of held ground a lot. There were 3 touchdowns on the day: Everett, Eckler, and then the Trevon Bradford touchdown. And then the Gerald Everett touchdown was in a red zone drill. So that, was different. But other than that, they kind of held their own. A lot of field goals. Offense had a lot of field goals yesterday.
Yeah, they kicked way more field goals than I drove up there to see, to be perfectly honest. But the offense moved the ball really well from 30 to 20, 30 to 15. They'd get down in the red zone, and things would get tight, and they'd just kind of stall out. Everett had a drop touchdown pass in the corner of the end zone, I think on the first possession, where he caught it, but he just couldn't get his feet in. And there were a couple other opportunities where it seemed like they had guys and they couldn't quite put it together. The run defense seemed to be stepping up really well in the red zone and just in general. But they were really tight in the red zone. There were a lot of run stops in the red zone. I know Lloyd had one. I think Sebastian Joseph Day had one. I think Austin Johnson had one. They were really good. Mack had one. So a lot of flashy run stops, which were good to see. But they were able to get plays in small and medium-sized chunks. It's kind of the way they run their offense, right? When they were starting on their side of the field, they were running 10 to 13 play drives for the most part. Sometimes converting 4th down, sometimes converting 3rd downs. I think what you can take away is it looks to me like Herbert is going to be looking to Mike Williams and Josh Palmer a lot on 3rd downs. Both those guys had a lot of 3rd down catches. 3rd and long seemed like it was going Mike's way quite a bit, usually along the sideline against JC Jackson. A lot of physical catches, boxing Jackson out. making contested grabs like we've seen him do for the last 4 or 5 years. Palmer was more making catches in space, playing a lot more in the slot, running those slants, those deep overs, the posts, things like that, getting to that second level at least and making catches. He had one really nice kind of diving third down grab on a slant where he was fully extended against Callahan and made a really nice snag. So definitely some cohesion there with the wide receivers. The ability to move the ball was promising. Just stalling out, I think some of the timing and execution just isn't quite there at this stage of camp in the red zone.
Yeah. So let's talk about defense. You were talking about Callahan. We can talk about these DBs who, for the most part, were quiet in my mind. I thought Nasir Adderley definitely stuck out. Came down, had a really strong run stop up the middle. Also hit Joseph Kelly on a swing pass that he wasn't fooled by. And
Joshua Kelly.
Joshua Kelly. Yeah. What did I say?
Joseph.
Who's Joseph Kelly? Joshua Kelly. Joseph Day, maybe. Joshua Kelly on a swing pass that, I mean, he wasn't fooled by at all. Came down and kind of sticked him a little bit. And I saw JT Woods with a run stop, but other than that, I mean, there weren't any turnovers, no interceptions, not a lot of PBUs. There was one by Tavon Campbell on a pretty bad a late pass by Stick, but other than that, there wasn't a lot of pass breakups, some run game stops, but nothing really to note from these safeties. Jamie? Or corners?
No, I mean, Adderley was pretty active. I think I think he had 2 run stops. I know for sure he had one in the red zone on Eckler. Pretty physical one where he grabbed Eckler and spun him down on the ground.
Yeah.
And it seemed like things were getting chippy with him and Joshua Kelly. I think somebody mentioned that they had a little spat on the sideline Friday or Thursday where Kelly tried to stiff arm Adderley, and Adderley told him if he did that again, he'd bitch slap him. So it seems like they're getting a little chippy there.
Yeah. Which is going to happen.
Yep. But Adderley's anticipating and diagnosing really well, and he's getting downhill and making those plays closer to the line of scrimmage. So I thought he looked good, even though there weren't a lot of plays in the passing game. Seemed like the wide receivers, for the most part, had their way yesterday, especially with more field to work with. As things got tighter, they had a little bit more trouble getting open. But they were able to get downfield and make some plays. They were able to make some intermediate catches. Not a lot of missed tackles. It seemed like the corners were tackling pretty well for the most part. They'd catch the ball and they'd get them down.
Yeah.
But nothing really right home about. There weren't any splashy plays, no picks, no fumbles. There weren't any turnovers at all, I don't think.
Nope.
Which is encouraging for the offense, but maybe a little less so for the defense.
Yeah. But so not a lot to talk about. And Mark Webb not out there, which is a little bit disappointing. A guy who was ascending through camp and then again is banged up and out. But a group that was exciting, even though we didn't see a lot of Joey Bosa yesterday, was this edge group. There were a lot of guys flashing this group.
Yeah, the edge group is really promising. There's a bunch of guys that might be fighting for 1 or 2 spots. I thought Chris Rump looked really good. He looked really explosive off the edge. Did have a sack. At least I credit him with the sack. There was a play where he and Tillery kind of converged on Herbert, and Rump did the right thing and ran around Herbert. Tillery then proceeded to run right over Rump and almost took him out of the practice. But Rump had several pressures. He had at least the 1 sack. I think he had a couple tackles for loss. He looked really good, very explosive, active. Looks like the game is speeding up for him, or I guess slowing down for him. He's playing faster, I should say.
Yep.
Carlo Kemp also looked good coming off the edge at times.
He did.
Jamal Davis looked like he had a lot of juice coming off the edge.
Sure did.
Had a couple tackles for loss, and I think he might have had a sack too. He looked really, really good. And
then this Khalil Mack guy.
And that Khalil Mack guy is pretty good too.
Especially in the run game yesterday. We know we can get after the quarterback, but damn, did he look good in the run game yesterday.
He looked really disruptive.
Yeah, he was a tear. Yeah, Khalil Mack, great. Chris Rump, really impressive yesterday. Probably one of the best days from the edge players, if not on defense. Getting the sack, a few tackles for loss, very disruptive from Chris Rump. Jamal Davis dropped the hammer a few times. I think Jamie's right. I think he had a sack or at least close to a sack. since they're not tackling any quarterbacks, and was really good in the run game. He dropped, I think it was Isaiah Spiller in the hole on a run stop, and Carlo Kemp, a guy I haven't really heard a lot about, but bottom the depth chart guy who flashed a lot yesterday with the second team defense. So a lot of guys, a lot of good reps from these edge players, with Joey Bosa not really getting a lot of reps yesterday. And then go ahead, Jimmy.
Oh, I was just going to say the one guy who I didn't really stand out or didn't look particularly good to me was Emeka Egbule. He
Oh,
was on
right.
the field a lot, played some with the ones and with the twos, and I don't really remember anything from him.
No.
Nothing that made me stop and take a second look, or no
Uh-uh.
plays or anything.
Yeah. He was quiet.
He was really quiet.
Yeah. And then in terms of linebackers, there weren't a lot playing yesterday. No Kyle Van Noy, no Drew Tranquil, no Nick Neiman. So it was Bong, Amanang Bongamiga, who was one of the starting linebackers. Troy Reeder, who was fairly quiet yesterday. But one linebacker who definitely made his presence known was Damon Lloyd, who had a lot of really good reps from the linebacker spot. And now that I think about it, it might have been Lloyd who got that run stop on Spiller. But yeah, Damon Lloyd was a guy who really, really flashed yesterday.
I wouldn't even say he flashed. I would just say he was consistently good.
Mm-hmm.
When he was on the field, it seemed like he was making plays.
Mm-hmm.
Seemed like he was always in the hole waiting for running backs. He showed a lot of speed as a blitzer. Very effective against the run. I think he was around the ball on a couple pass plays. Maybe didn't get credit for PBUs, but was there and made the play more difficult. He looks like a kid who has a chance to make this roster. I mean, I don't remember seeing much of Cole Christensen on the field. Did you see him on the field at all?
No. If he was very, very quiet.
Yeah. Seems like, I mean, Lloyd he's one of those kids that coaches love. He's been around for a couple of years. He's been fighting to stay on the roster. He was hurt all year last year, and now it's like he's breaking out all at once in camp. And he's probably going to contribute on special teams. He can certainly contribute on defense in certain situations. He seems like a guy who's got a good chance to make this roster just based on the way he's playing. I've been keeping up with all the reports from camp, and it seems like he makes 2 or 3 plays every day.
Yep.
Tackle for loss, sack, tip pass, whatever it might be. He's always around the football, and they don't have enough of that at linebacker right now, even when everybody's healthy. So
exactly. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see if he could leapfrog a guy like a Cole Christensen or a Nick Neiman and find his way onto the roster.
Yeah. He's making plays every day. He's been awesome. And he is the guy that had the tackle for a loss. The Chargers have a video of it right now. So go check that out. He knifed through the middle of the offensive line and got that tackle for a loss. He looked really good yesterday. And then about these interior guys, any notes from anybody that you saw that kind of stood out?
I think the biggest note is just kind of how the rotations are working out right now. And the rotations right now, the first team obviously is Austin Johnson and Sebastian Joseph Day.
Yeah.
Yesterday, the second team was Christian Covington and Otito Ogbania. So seems like Tillery's kind of starting to fall down the depth chart a little bit. He did mix in with the ones a little bit yesterday, mixed in with the twos. But was not one of the primary guys in either the first team or the second team defensive line, which is interesting to me. So, didn't see much from Fox. I think Sebastian Joseph Day might have had a run stop at some point early in the scrimmage.
I think you're right.
But overall, it was a pretty quiet day. It seemed like the offensive line really held their own against the defensive line, and there just wasn't a lot of plays from the interior guys.
So one run stop from Brendan Fehoko, one, I think you're right, from Joseph Day. Outside of that, not a lot of action on the interior. But Staley
didn't Fehoko have a sack or might have had a couple pressures? I think he was around the quarterback a couple times.
He definitely was. I don't remember him getting a sack though. I think there's only 2 on the day. But outside of that, Staley said after practice that Tito, the rookie, is a guy that they are really, really excited about, and a guy they mixed in with the ones today, and who just seems to be getting better and better, and a guy that they wanted to get starters reps to yesterday. just because of how good he's been in camp. So I haven't heard a lot from Tito, but it seems like the coaches are loving him and starting to give him put a little bit more on his plate now, moving through training camp.
Good. That's good. Having
Yeah.
a 6th-round guy climb the depth chart like that and start to get some of those starters reps is really good. Maybe it lessens the need to keep a guy like a Covington or a Tillery.
Uh-huh.
And just improves the depth.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that does it for offense, defense, special teams. We saw Dustin Hopkins miss 2 early on, but I guess to his credit or not, it was a 51-yarder and a 45 plus, Jamie. Was that the second one?
I think so, yeah.
Somewhere in that range. Yes. But then after that, he nailed every kick after that. So if you want to get a positive from that, he was able to settle down and make all his kicks after that. And they kicked a lot of field goals yesterday. Again, more than either of us wanted to see.
Yeah, way more than like if they kicked 15 field goals, they kicked 15 more than what we wanted to see.
Exactly.
Also, in terms of special teams, J.K. Scott had some really nice punts, a lot of hang time.
He looks like he's got a leg on him, man.
He does, yeah.
They're skinny, but he was pinning those returners back yesterday.
There was, he had, I think, 3 or 4 balls punts that he downed inside the 10-yard line, a couple inside the 5. So that was encouraging. You want to talk about gunner? They had, I think, 6 to 8 guys rotating at gunner. We had, let's see, Michael Davis.
Yep.
Michael Bandy.
Yep.
Keemon Hall.
Yep.
I think Dean Leonard.
Yep.
And Raheem Lane.
JT Woods. Yep.
And then I think there were a couple more, but it seemed like the
French.
first team. Guyton was in there too.
And French.
Yep. It seemed like the first team group though was Hall and I think Michael Davis, if I'm not mistaken.
Was Gilman in there, or did I make that up?
I don't think so.
Okay, all right. I made that up. Ignore that part. But yes. Come on, Keemon Hall was part of the first team gunners, and Michael Davis.
Yeah, let me see. I had a list. Hang on, I'll pull it up.
And then while you're pulling that up, we saw 3 returners. It was Deandre Carter, Bryce Callahan, and Michael Bandy were the guys returning punts in that kind of, special teams drills before the scrimmage. And surprisingly, no Joe Reed back there or Maurice French. So Joe Reed, a guy who, while kind of struggling at times in camp so far, kind of up and down, you would hope he'd be able to maybe make a mark on special teams, but not really getting a lot of run as a returner so far in camp.
Joe Reed was also rotating with the Gunners.
Okay.
So Keemon Hall, Jalen Guyton, Josh Palmer, I forgot about him. I think the first teamers were Hall and Palmer, if I'm not mistaken. And then they had Guyton, Woods, and Leonard all returning or all working at Gunner. But yeah,
so there you go.
Yep.
Yeah, that's it. That's our full recap from the Intrasquad scrimmage from yesterday. Again, thank you everybody for coming out. We appreciate it. And that's going to be it. We'll probably have some podcasts. We got preseason coming up here soon. So make sure you tune in. We'll be doing it after the preseason game. And Jamie, anything else you want to leave them before we go?
Just wanted to thank everybody who came out yesterday and anybody who wasn't there explicitly to see us, but stopped by to say hi. Really appreciate all the kind words everybody had to say. Even if you did make us feel a little bit old a couple times.
Oh my God.
We definitely appreciate it and really enjoyed the time at the pizza bar with our group that showed up. It was a lot of fun and hope to be able to do that again sometime soon.
Yeah. When we hear comments like, oh, I've been listening to you since 5th grade. And I'm like, oh my God. So what are you like in high school? And they're like, oh no, I'm going to college. And like in my head, I'm going, what? The math doesn't, I'm trying to do the math in my head, go, oh my God.
Yeah.
Man, does that make us feel old?
I've been listening to you since I was 12.
Yeah.
What?
With this language? Holy cow. All right. All right, guys. Thanks so much. And we will see you next time.
Thanks, everybody.